Hey guys, Drew here from Tactics Talk 40K, here to talk to you guys about the Starweaver and Voidweaver. Sorry, not Reaver. They are pretty much the last two, I think, items left in the book to talk about. I think we've covered just about everything else, but I may do one more just to wrap everything up and talk about all the enigmas of the Black Library as well as all the psychic powers. But for the most part, I think this will probably be my last video. Unless you guys are available upon request, I will do the in-depth review of both those things if you want them. Or if you want me to go into depth about the formations, I can do that as well. But for this video, I'm going to primarily focus on the Voidweaver and the Starweaver and how they should be used in your Harlequin army. So we're going to talk about the Voidweaver first, because I think we've already covered a lot about the Starweaver. The Voidweaver is the only heavy support choice and is required to be taken by the organizational chart given to you when you take Harlequins, unless you're following, again, one of the formations. So you're going to be probably including one of these units in your army. I believe you can only take one unit of this in your army if you're taking them with that formation. So that's another important thing to mention, is that you can only take one unit of these. They can be taken in a unit of 3, so you can essentially take 3 of them in one formation. So that's not a huge problem. Now, whether or not it's important, like you want to take them in one big unit, is another thing, but we'll talk about all that in this video. So the Voidweaver, what it is a 75-point venom, essentially. So it's 10 armor on all sides, 2 hull points, with a 5 up invulnerable save from hollow fields, and it has a shuriken cannon on the front underneath, a shuriken cannon mounted at the back hull, and as well as a haywire launcher on the front. It's kind of a different kind of vehicle. It's 75 points, so it's only 5 points more than a Starweaver, but it has no transport capacity whatsoever, so it can only be taken as it's just basically a gunboat. So it doesn't really have many options in terms of upgrades. It only has the prismatic cannon, which I have never really used, primarily because I don't see a very good use for this weapon. I mean, it's not a bad weapon, don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. What it is, it's kind of like a mini fire prism cannon. If you know what the fire prism cannon does with Eldar, it's basically what it is. It has 3 fire modes. It has the dispersed fire mode, which is like a strength 3 AP 5, I believe, large blast. And then it has the less dispersed mode, which is like a strength 5 AP 3 small blast. And then it again has a single shot that's, I believe, a strength 7 AP 2 lance single shot. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry if I got any of those profiles wrong, that's all off the top of my head. The range, I believe, is 36. Again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's not a bad range. I know it's between 24 and I think 48 inches, so I'm going to say 36 to be safe. It's around that distance. So yeah, it's a pretty good weapon. It's not terrible. It is, I think, a 10-point upgrade for your, and it replaces your haywire launcher. So you're basically taking away your main source of anti-armor, which is a strength 4 AP 4 haywire blast, and exchanging it for that prismatic cannon. I've never seen an option. I mean, even if it was free, I don't think I would even do it. I'm not like making fun of you if you take this option. I mean, it definitely is a doable thing. It's not a terrible weapon by any means. It's got a lot of versatility, and it could do a lot of different things for you. But the thing is that what Harlequins need is I'm really upset with it. They only made the strength 7. If it was strength 8 and all the other profiles were the same, I could see the argument there. But a strength 7 lance, I mean, what's the point? I mean, in every situation, a haywire grenade blaster is better. And if you're talking about the small blast, the only thing that's really better is, if you look at the 2 profiles, is the small blast is strength 5 AP 3. That's the only really weapon profile that you really want to use on this vehicle. I mean, the strength 3 AP 5 large blast, I guess, could be useful against like a big unit of like other Eldar or guardsmen or something like that. But for the most part, again, the Harlequins don't have problems dealing with infantry. Like, you don't need to have your guns also kill infantry. All your Harlequins, your Solitaires, your Shadowseers, all of them kill infantry. The jet bikes kill infantry. Everything kills infantry. What this army sorely needs is anti-armor. And this thing just has to be that. It has to be that. It has to be your anti-armor. It really can't do anything else. Now, arguably, you could use it as anti-infantry as well if you're taking it with, you know, an ally, for example. For sure, it's a decent option, and I don't think I would think less of anybody who took it with an ally. But if you're going straight up Harlequins, like purist Harlequins, this thing has to have a Haywire launcher, in my opinion. 3 of them with a Haywire launcher is pretty scary, and it's not a terrible thing to do. Typically, I only end up taking 1 of these. I never end up taking them in a bigger unit, primarily because I don't own more than 1. For that reason is because it's just not. I probably am going to get a second one, but that's only because I want to basically field it with the formation that allows you to take jet bikes. With the 2 units of jet bikes that can reroll all their jinx saves, including like the whole formation can reroll their whole jinx saves. So that's definitely a good formation for him to be in. But again, this thing's not going to want to jink because it's a blast. It's not going to want to jink. If you jink, you're not going to be getting to shoot your Haywire cannon. So it has the same problem as the Harlequin jet bikes, but it's a little bit worse than the Harlequin jet bikes, in my opinion. The Harlequin jet bikes are a little bit better, in my opinion. And you can argue both sides, but for me, the Harlequin jet bikes are cheaper, and they're faster, and they can fight in close combat, and they have hit and run. Versus where this thing is slower, pretty much. It's more expensive. Granted, it is an armor value instead of a toughness value of 4, and so bolter fire is only doing anything to you on 6s. But you're still going to be avoiding bolter fire with both of the units. Like both of them are going to get brought down by lots of low strength shooting. So you're going to have to jink in those situations. And in my opinion, a 4-up armor save on my Harlequin jet bikes is better than a 5-up combinable save on my Voidweaver, because I can't jink. Like, jinking is just not an option. So a 4-up armor save on my jet bike, I might still get that against bolter fire and stuff like that, and I'm opted not to jink. I don't need to jink because I'm still going to get my 4-up armor save. There's no bonus for me jinking. Versus with this thing, if you jink, you can't fire anymore, and all you get is +1 to your save, and all of a sudden it becomes useless for the turn. And then realistically, if you lose 2 hull points, it's dead anyway. It's just as fragile as really a bike, in my opinion. So for those reasons alone, the Voidweaver had so much more potential than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be much more powerful than it is. Unfortunately, it's almost like a tax, and I say that in the nicest way possible. Like, I'm not saying, if I didn't have to take one, I probably would just take more jet bikes. In my opinion, I would just do that. But it's worth taking. It's still not terrible because it still does have the Haywire blaster, and it is another piece of armor your opponent's going to have to shoot something at. So it's not terrible, but I would never take it in a unit bigger than 1. Like, never. I don't think I'd ever have a reason to do that. And the main reason that is because the formation that allows you to take the reroll jinx saves on the jet bikes and him is so much better. I mean, again, it's a tax to that formation, but realistically, it's so cheap to take just 2 units of 2 jet bikes and a Voidweaver, and you're ready to go. You can take the jet bikes kitted out with the Zephyr Glaives, so they get their AP 2 and +1 strength on the charge, so +2 strength on the charge with Furious Charge. You can take those guys in conjunction with the Voidweaver in that formation, and that way you can jink, and all of a sudden the jet bikes have 4-up rerollable jink saves, which is crazy. Like, that's awesome. And if it's night fighting, you can potentially have a 3-up rerollable jink save, which is even better. There's no reason not to do that with the Voidweaver. So that's why I'm saying I'm probably going to have 2 in my final army, because I want to have 1 with my standard formation, and then another one with my formation with the other two small units of jet bikes with Zephyr Glaives. So I want to ideally the way I see it is I'm going to take my jet bikes that have haywire grenade launchers as part of my main formation, and then the ones that have the Zephyr Glaives as part of my Voidweaver jet bike detachment, because they can reroll their jink saves, and I will jink if like almost every turn, because it'll keep them alive longer. And I really don't care if I can't shoot my shuriken cannons at full ballistic skill, because I can still shoot them for one, and if they kill something cool. If not, I don't care. I'm still charging you with 8 attacks at initiative 7 or 6 with strength 5 AP 2, like with weapon skill 5. That's still deadly even when you're jinking. It means they can soak up a lot more damage, right? So the Voidweaver, it's the only option of your heavy, so I mean, you're going to need to take one. So I recommend take them in small quantities. Don't go heavy Voidweaver, in my opinion. Go more jet bikes with haywire launchers. You'll just get more of them. You'll get more haywire launchers for less points, in my opinion. Because realistically, you want to cram as many haywire launchers into your Harlequin list as you possibly can. I wouldn't leave home without 6 of them, probably. 6 haywire launchers is a good place to be. Probably even 7. 7 haywire launchers means you're probably taking out a vehicle and a half, maybe 2 vehicles a turn, and that's a good balance. And as well as they're all going to be split up in small units of 2. The Voidweaver is going to be by itself, so it's another small unit of 1. And your opponent's going to have to dedicate a lot of firepower to those each individual units to take them out before your armor taking out abilities is really hindered. So that's pretty much it for the Voidweaver. There really isn't a lot more tactics you can really talk about with it. If you can, the shuriken, it's worth mentioning, I guess, that the back shuriken cannon can fire at a different target than the front 2 weapons. Again, if you're using it with the haywire launcher, just keep it somewhere behind cover if you possibly can to hopefully get a cover save. I wouldn't be, shooting this up the table, trying to shoot at multiple targets, exposing, getting within range. First of all, getting within range of 2 units that are within 24 inches, one of them being in front of you, one of them being behind you, is very, very situational. You're probably going to forget about it almost every game, because I have. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. To fire 3 extra shots is like whatever. It's not worth sacrificing 75 points for. That's for sure. So it is a cool thing. It is like a fluffy thing, but it's not, on the way it translates on the tabletop, is not super effective. How it can be super effective is if you are using it for anti-infantry. Then, of course, you could get in position, fire your shuriken cannons from the front and the back, and then fire your prismatic large blast at a unit in front of you. I can see you taking out a potential big block of infantry that way, and potentially maybe even killing 2 big blocks of infantry that way. And that's fine. If you're using Harlequins as an ally to help take out infantry, like say you're playing Dark Eldar and you're taking lots of anti-armor and you need anti-infantry for some reason, or you're playing Dark Eldar and you're taking lots of Dark Lances and you don't really feel like taking poison for some weird reason, like, okay, you could use that as your other option. Shuriken cannons you can't get them in Dark Eldar without allying an Eldar or Harlequins. So yeah, makes sense to me. I guess you could do that. But for me, 75 points for something that does that, it's probably fair. I'm not saying they're overpointed. There's just better things in the Codex to do the same job, in my opinion. And that pretty much is it for the Voidweaver. If you have any more questions about it, please leave a comment below. I'm going to touch quickly on the Starweaver in the same video. So Starweaver is very similar to the Voidweaver, as it has 10 armor on all sides, 2 hull points, 5 invulnerable save from hollow field, so ballistic skill 4, the same as the Voidweaver. Sorry, I forgot to mention it's ballistic skill 4 on the Voidweaver. Everything's ballistic skill 4 in the Harlequin book, pretty much, besides like your troop masters and stuff. But it has 2 shuriken cannons, so 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, both shooting out the front hull mounted. So that's pretty nice. It's got 6 shots that are strength 6, AP 6 with Blade Storm. Nothing wrong with that. It's basically a Viper with a 5 of. It's basically a Viper that has 6 transport capacity. So, and it has hollow fields built in. So, nothing wrong with that. It is the backbone of the Harlequin book, really, because it is your only dedicated transport. And you can fit 6 in it, so it is bigger than a Venom, which is nice. So you can fit in a 5-unit Harlequin squad and throw in a Shadow Seer if you wanted to, or a Death Jester if you wanted to. So all that's fantastic. Other than that, it's used pretty much the same way you would use a Venom. You'd basically get them to do some support fire when you can to take out light armor with your Strength 6 Bladestorm, and maybe even some monstrous creatures that are like Toughness 6 or lower. They're good at taking those out as well. Pretty much anything that a Shuriken Cannon can really hurt, it's kind of a good target for them. I mean, you can obviously hurt anything that's a toughness value because it's Bladestorm automatically wounds on a 6, so you can, if you have enough Starweavers, you can fire them all into Wraith Knights if you want. I have before, because there was just nothing else better to shoot at, because it was a whole bunch of 12 armor. If it's between shooting 12 armor and a Wraith Knight, I'll probably opt to shoot the Wraith Knight, because on a roll of a 6, it's AP2, and it automatically wounds. So he's only going to be getting either his, Feel No Pain or Invulnerable saves, if he has them. So you could take a wound or 2 off a Wraith Knight with them if you have no other good targets, but typically if there's anything that's 11 armor or lower, I'll shoot at that. Or if there's like a big unit of like, let's say anything that's, really anything, even Space Marines, anything that's toughness 4 or lower, I would shoot. Is not a bad target, really. I mean, Bladestorm allows you to go through armor of Terminators and stuff on a roll of a 6, so, and it still causes quite a few wounds because you're hitting on 3s, you're wounding on 2s. It's still, 4 or 5 wounds they're going to have to save every time, just about, if they have any saves. And if you roll a 6 or 2, then maybe you kill 1 or 2 Terminators, or you kill 1 or 2 Space Marines from that, and then maybe they fail one other save. It's a good thing to have 2 Shuriken Cannons. I'm a big fan of 2 Shuriken Cannons. I'm an Eldar player, and I play with my Vipers all with 2 Shuriken Cannons now. It's super cheap to do it. If you haven't been doing it, I recommend you try that. If you're an Eldar player, try a unit of Vipers, like 3 Vipers with 2 Shuriken Cannons each. It's deadly. You can dish out a lot of firepower and be super mobile at the same time and take out all kinds of stuff. I've taken out even 12 armor. I've taken out, and I've done enough hull points where it's done 2 or 3 glancing hits on 12 armor and taken it down in a pinch. So I mean, it is like it is the gun that you're going to have the most of typically, because you're probably going to have a typical Harlequin army will have anywhere between 3 or 4. Depending on point size, obviously, anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 will have 3 or 4 of these. Should have 3 or 4 Starweavers, in my opinion, for if you want to be competitive. And I mean that in the I'm maybe not even just to be competitive, just to be like, just in order to stay on the field for more than a turn or 2. I recommend you pick up a few of these. You are going to need 3 of them pretty much almost always, because of the fact that you're going to want to have you need 3 troops for the organization chart for Harlequins, and you might as well put them in Starweavers, unless you want to take them in big squads of 12 and put them with Shadowweavers. If you have the points to do that, great. For me though, Starweavers have been pretty much outperforming my big squads with Shadowweavers, just because of the simple fact that I can't always get those psychic powers off, and if you don't get it off, your Harlequins are super vulnerable, and it's tough. It's tougher. At least if you're in a Starweaver, even though it does offer huge protection, it does have the Mirage launchers. So does the Voidweaver, I should mention, that it does have Mirage launchers. So it does, instead of jinking once per game, it can pop Mirage launchers and gain a 4-up invulnerable save, which is good. It saves you from jinking a turn, really. So you can still fire all your Shuriken Cannons, usually turn 1 or 2. Like, if you have... What's really nice is Harlequins really want to go first, so if you go first with your Harlequins, you're going to be able to move all your Starweavers in position to fire. If you have 3 of them, that's 6, 9, or 12, 18 Shuriken Cannon shots going into whatever, 3 different targets if you want, divided evenly, or all into 1 target if you wanted to take down a Wraith Knight, for example. 18 shots on 6s that cause AP2 will do a few wounds to a Wraith Knight. Typically, on average, you're looking at, 3 wounds, pretty much, on the Wraith Knight. So that's half a Wraith Knight dead, which is really good. I mean, that's a lot of damage. I mean, it's most of your firepower, pretty much all of your firepower. But it leaves your jet bikes with haywire launchers and your Voidweavers with haywire launchers free to shoot down the other the opponent's armor. So if he's got Wave Serpents, so if you're playing Eldar in this case, if he's got Wave Serpents, and if he's got Viper, any kinds of Vipers or anything like that, it's a good target. Although Vipers, you might want to opt to shoot them, the Shuriken cannons at the Vipers. I would, because you want to definitely make sure they jink. You don't want to have them firing full ballistic skill at you. So I would definitely fire at least 6 shots of them at it. Your opponent's going to jink if you fire 6 Shuriken cannon shots into a 10 armor open topped vehicle. He just will. If he doesn't, then well, you're probably going to kill 2 of them, and you're still happy. So, a good opponent would jink. I would jink if someone fired 6 shots at my 3 Vipers, pretty much guaranteed. Unless I had hollow fields on all of them, in which case I still don't. I don't believe in hollow fields on Vipers, to be honest with you. But that's a different topic for a different video. Try to stay on topic here. Yeah, the Starweaver is like your backbone. Again, it is like your go-to vehicle. You're going to basically field these things all the time. If you're not fielding these all the time, they act as kind of your heavy support and transport all in one. Like, they're not just your transports. Like, it's not like a Rhino, for example. A Rhino is a transport that just basically moves them across the field, has 2 fire points, and that's it. That's all. These things are going to act. You have to have them, in my opinion, because even if you don't put guys in them, like even if you take squads of 12, I would still pay for the dedicated transport and have it empty, and then maybe throw in a Death Jester later, because you're gonna really want to have these Shuriken cannons. Like, you can't take Shuriken cannons on the masses. Like, yeah, you could take a whole bunch of Death Jesters, but they're gonna be so much more fragile, and they're almost the same amount of points as a Starweaver. So I'm a big fan of the Starweaver. It's probably like a 9 out of 10. The only thing I wish it had is I wish it had an extra hull point. But again, like, you can't really argue that. Like, there's nothing you could really do about that. And I wish it could maybe take a different piece of war gear. Like, if it could take a Haywire launcher, oh my gosh, the Harlequins would solve so many problems with the Harlequins. But you can't. So that's the way it is. But don't be afraid to jink with them, because they do have Shuriken cannons. They can, once your Mirage launchers are gone. Like, once your Mirage launchers are gone, I'd be jinking pretty much all the time. Keep them alive as long as possible. They are your troop transport. You want them alive. They can go out and get your objectives. They can go out and harass your opponent. They can go out and get moved. They can go out and pick up other units if the transport's been destroyed. I've had that happen where I had a unit of Harlequins. Sometimes you'll have a situation where you'll have a unit of Harlequins. They jump out of their transport. It charges in to combat and kills a bunch of stuff, and then the next turn it gets blown away by some rapid fire deep striking or outflanking guys. And then the unit that and then maybe let's say you had another unit of Harlequins on the other side of the table that their transport got destroyed turn 1 because you just rolled terrible. I've gone to pick them up with the Starweaver, just flat out the Starweaver. Go pick up your other lone unit of Harlequins that got destroyed from far away, and get them to where they need to be. It's super good utility, and lots of firepower at the same time. If you think about it, if you compare it to the Voidweaver directly, it potentially has more firepower than a Voidweaver, because 2 Shuriken cannons, like, is amazing. Like, it's I don't understand why the Voidweaver can't take a top Shuriken cannon, because if you could, I would do that pretty much always. But it's kind of funny that they didn't allow the Voidweaver to take the lesser of the guns. But hey, I don't make the rules, and we can't really do anything about that. But they have won me plenty of games. The Starweavers. They've taken out all kinds of stuff for me. Usually your opponent can't ignore them because they are pretty threatening. They do a lot of damage if you ignore them. Since they're all individual units as well, and they're all dedicated transports, you can field a ton of them. You can even go to the point where if you really wanted to, you could take your 3 troop choices as 12-man units, and then you could take 3 Voidweavers as dedicated transports with them. And then for your 2 fast attack mandatory requirements, you could just take another 2 Starweavers, potentially giving you 5 Starweavers, which, even if they're empty, that's a lot of different targets for your opponent to now fire at, and it's kind of scary. And you can definitely fit that kind of a list in, a smaller point game. You don't have to take them in a huge point game. So, I mean, I definitely want to try it. I'm going to need to buy more of them to do that. I have currently 4. I'm going to need to buy probably another Voidweaver and another Starweaver or 2. I'm in the middle of painting. I finished painting 3 of them so far, so we're almost done painting what I own. So I'll show some pics of that when it's all finished in my Harlequin army, when it is 100% completed. They are looking pretty nice, and I'm pretty excited about fielding them all painted. Hopefully taking them to a tournament very soon, but we'll have to see. I'm probably going to end up allying with Dark Eldar, though, because I just don't think it'll be very competitive to bring just Harlequins on their own. Even though I'm a good player and I know that I'm playing against people that are going to be in a friendly environment, there's just some matchups they just can't deal with. At least not until I get a little more experience playing with them. I can fully admit that even as an experienced player, you never get discouraged if you don't win with an army. Sometimes you're just doing things wrong. Sometimes you're just not using the army in the way that they're supposed to be used against certain armies. Sometimes your playstyle has to drastically change in order to beat certain armies. And I understand some armies just don't have the means to do it. And I guarantee you the Harlequins are definitely in that category. They definitely don't have the means to beat certain armies. They definitely just don't have all the tools needed. No matter how balanced you try to make that list, they're always going to end up being a little imbalanced because they just don't have enough options in their book. But hey, it's a brand new codex. I'm happy there is one. So I'm not saying that the book's bad, and I'm not trying to deter you from Harlequins whatsoever. I think if you like Harlequins like me, get them. You're going to have tons of fun playing them. When they work beautifully. When they don't work, you die terribly. It's just something you'll have to accept. They are a painter's army, in my opinion. And they are not an easy army to paint. They are not an easy army to play. They are very specialized, very special. And that's why I like them so much, is because they are so unique, so very different, and are very difficult. It challenges me as a painter to paint them all, and it challenges me as a player to play with them. So I don't like playing any armies that are easy. Any easy armies to play for me are they're just too easy. I don't think I could ever play Vanilla Marines anymore, because I'm not saying that if you play Vanilla Marines, they're a hard army or an easy army to win with. I'm just saying there's very little tactics involved with Space Marines. They pretty much do what they do. Everyone knows what Space Marines do. I'm not saying Space Marines aren't competitive. I think they're very competitive. I just think that they're very simple to play. They're very forgiving, and they can deal with pretty much any army in the entire game if you bring the right tools and they're balanced correctly to do so. I think that there's lots of armies like that, like Necrons, for example. It's one of the reasons why I don't play Necrons anymore. I used to play Necrons back when they had 2-up armor saves and were really, really durable. They had phase, but they had the downside. They had phase out, and they were very difficult to play. They were very difficult to win with, let's say. And I definitely have respect for people who played Necrons back in 5th edition and less than that. But ever since the 6th edition book came out, well, I guess the late 5th edition book. The last 5th edition book was Necrons, so from that book on, Necrons became super easy, in my opinion. Necrons are one of the easiest armies to play, but anyway, we'll talk about them in another video. I'm getting a little off topic, so thanks for listening, guys, and happy wargaming.